Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Parent Solution. This is episode number 16, and today the topic is a bit of a potentially touchy subject. Up for discussion today, I am talking about how far we can lower the bar for our children academically before we draw the line. Now, understand I am not including children with developmental challenges or delays in this particular podcast. Instead, we're having a conversation and a discussion about what one might call quote-unquote normal children. So this is really at the crux of the issue. The most dangerous thing that we can do for our children is to lower our standards regarding their potential. Notice I said standards, not expectations. It's not about having expectations, but standards. So expectations are specific sets of beliefs that result from previous experience or what we might call preconceived biases. Standards refer to a particular level of quality that's achieved. This is a quality that's necessary for a sense of baseline education and mannerisms, really, within a certain society. So, of course, it would be a utopian paradise if each child was encouraged to follow their dreams, reach for the stars, work where they wanted to work, do what they wanted to do, live life on their own terms. That would be a utopian paradise, but it really should be non-negotiable because every individual deserves to live a fulfilled and a purposeful life, particularly within the working world. If you can, for a moment, imagine a society where each and every human being was responsible for something that they actually enjoyed doing. How much more of a productive and honestly, genuinely content society would we have? This all sounds great, it all sounds fantastic, but there's some basic academic skills that are needed for this to happen. So the suggestion has been made, and actually in the state of Oregon, legislation has been, I note privately, passed, that reading and writing are no longer required in any format to pass high school. Speaking as both a formal and an informal educator, this definitely brings forward some serious shortcomings within the public system that need to be addressed. Before we talk about what the actual solution is, let's define the problem. Society is changing, that's true. Progress is positive, but change is not always for the better. We're talking about the very basic skills of reading and writing here. So when we think about reading, we think about comprehension, fluency, vocabulary, literacy. And when we talk about writing, we're talking about structure, organization, grammar. Those sorts of things are necessary. Working at those sorts of things are necessary in order to develop critical thinking skills. And if you take the development of critical thinking skills away from the very fabric of education itself, what are you really left with? Now, sure, there are other ways to learn about the world around you, because after all, that's only part of what the skills of reading and writing teach you. But these other ways of learning about the world around you don't require the same level of self-discipline or focus or perseverance in order to develop them or maintain them. And if we're not teaching our children to be strong, independent individuals, then what and who are we teaching them to be? We're teaching them to be exactly the opposite of strong and independent. And it's the results of that, long term, that are catastrophic. Because no longer are we going to have individuals and adults ready to create new inventions or filled with excitement about work that they find meaningful, or speaking their minds freely and literately, or developing micro-societies with different thoughts or ideas, or conducting research and experiments to find better, healthier, and more efficient ways of learning and living life. So the question here, the overall question is, how do we as a global society and on an individual scale go about fixing this? And honestly, do we even try to fix this on a global scale? Or do we simply do what we can, how we can, when we can on a micro level? If you don't know your choices, you can't be expected to make an informed choice about what is best for your child, nor can your child be expected to make an informed choice about what is best for them. So I've laid out a couple options here, 5 to be exact, for those who are looking for something a little bit different and who are looking for a solution to this problem. So option number 1 is the most radical of the 5, and it is to step outside the system entirely. You have to remember that public school has only been around in the modern form that we know today since the early 1800s, and children were educated, I would argue, on a better sort of level then. If you wish to step outside the system entirely, the first step is to deregister your children from the school system itself. That's a practical task, but it's often overlooked. The process actually is not that complicated. Regardless of where you live, the legislation is much the same. It's paperwork and nothing more. There are so many other alternative learning options, and homeschooling and unschooling are the most common choices for parents that want to take a more holistic and flexible and balanced approach to their child's learning. Option 2, Catholic school. So perhaps homeschooling or unschooling is not for you. You want the best for your child and you want to give them every opportunity for quality education, but you want to stay within the public learning system. So if this is you, Catholic school may be an option. Catholic schools are a great option for those who wish to provide their children with more structure and routine, and ideally instill a sense of respect for authority. So generally, Catholic schools have to follow the same curriculum as public schools, which doesn't solve your problem of the skills not being taught, but the class sizes are statistically smaller, and so the education is deemed to be quote-unquote better in some sense of the word. Option 3, private schools. So this is an option that, regardless of where you live in the world, can be pricey. The exact dollar amount is, of course, dependent on far more than just where you actually live. Dependent on how many children you have, where you're living, of course, and the prestige and reputation of the school itself, this can run your wallet into the hundreds of thousands. So this is an option for the wealthy, but it is an option. Now, private schools, like Catholic schools, do also have to follow the curriculum that's been set out by the governing education body. So also similar to Catholic schools, they statistically have smaller class sizes. The key difference here is not in the curriculum or in the class sizes. Private schools have more flexibility with the implementation of subjects and how they teach. This means that they often develop more personal relationships with their students, which is not a bad thing. Option 4, charter schools. Charter schools may be an option for parents who are looking for a less expensive alternative to private schools. Unlike Catholic schools, charter schools do not have to follow the exact curriculum of the governing body, but like Catholic schools and public schools and private schools, charter schools do have to produce the same results. So in other words, students have to know and be able to demonstrate the same retention of information. Now, these charter schools are publicly funded. So this is the reason that they are responsible for the same results as public schools and private schools and Catholic schools. Charter schools are a great option for those that are looking for a similar curriculum, but they have independent teaching practices. So this will not be the best choice for a parent who's looking for a more holistic style of learning, and it does not solve the issue of the skills of reading and writing not being taught. Option 5, insist on playing a role. If none of the above options work for you, and if you think that your child is best left in public school for whatever reason, no judgment, then you must absolutely insist on playing a role in your child's education, because you have got to be involved if you want to remain aware of what is going on. This might sound like a simplistic solution, and it really is. Talk to your child's teachers. They'll be happy to hear from you. Get to know the administration. Find ways to be involved in school activities. Make friends with the other parents, not just those parents in your child's class, but other parents in the surrounding area. Reach out online. Social media is just one more way to connect with those who share your interest in involvement within the educational sphere. Remember, your child's education is your responsibility. Personal accountability is huge, but when your child is young, you have to help them get there. This is not done by encouraging them not to read and write, and it's certainly not done by following rules and regulations that are only going to end up harming our children in the long run. So how low do we set this bar? Why is it that we hold our kids to lower standards and not higher? they're capable of so much more. That's it for this week, guys. Thank you so much for listening, and I appreciate you all. This is The Parent Solution, your one-stop shop for all things educational.